sehr außergewöhnlichen Vortrag vorzustellen und außergewöhnlichen Referenten. Herr Bernhardt von Nielsen hat viel Erfahrung mit Blue-Chip-Unternehmen gemacht, ist auch lokal und auch international. Und als wir uns das erste Mal getroffen haben und über den Vortrag gesprochen hatten, dachte ich mir so, bin ich ein bisschen überrascht, passt das so irgendwie? Und als ich mir den dann angeschaut habe, habe ich gesagt, sehr interessant, super. Über den Tellerrand schauen ist auch unsere Devise hier bei dem Internationalen Trendforum. Und vor diesem Hintergrund bin ich ganz gespannt auf Ihren Vortrag. Vielen Dank, dass Sie heute hier sind.
Ja, vielen Dank, Herr Professor Hofmeister. Dankeschön. Und schönen guten Morgen. Und weil wir beim International Trend Forum sind, hatten wir sogar abgemacht, dass nicht nur die Slides auf Englisch sind, sondern dass Sie auch jemandem zuhören, der mit deutschem Akzent Englisch spricht. Mal gucken, ob das rüberkommt oder nicht. So I'll switch into English with your permission there. So yeah, thank you very much for your attention. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I was going to start my presentation with the question if you believe that we are already digital, but after listening to the first couple of presentations, also from Dr. Heise and Professor Heinemann, I think that question is not valid anymore. We are digital, full stop. So the question I think that I would like to discuss with you over the next 20 minutes or so is to say, what does it actually mean being connected 24/7, being digital? What does it mean from a consumers / customers or viewers perspective? And then leading to the next question, what does it mean for those of you who are advertising for your brands? And probably what does it mean for the media industry as a whole? So in a recent study, Nielsen has surveyed 30,000 respondents across 60 countries. So throughout the slides, I will dive a bit deeper with you into different geographies, and I will dive deeper with you into different generations and different user groups. We have asked them about their online or digital behavior, if you will. And the message that came out of the study is very clear, and you can see it here on the title slide. The message is that the battle is full on for the eye space being another expression for the attention of the consumer. Now, this is something that I think everybody can relate to. We already heard a few anecdotes. I think about your second daughter who is already WhatsApping your wife from upstairs to say good night or something like this. And I'm sure everyone who is maybe sitting at night watching television can relate to his or her daughter, sons being on the second screen, the third screen, and I don't know how many devices you have in action, and maybe you can see it in your electricity bill as well. If the whole family is surfing from left to right and up and down. And I think, at the moment, the technology that we are focusing on is mainly television. It's mainly computers / laptops, it's tablets, and it's mobile phones or smartphones. But think about all the other devices that are up and coming that we already alluded to earlier today. I saw that some of the people already got, the smart watches. I'm not sure if anybody, I see a couple of people sitting here with glasses, but I'm not sure if they are already sitting there with smart glasses. And of course, then there's the connected car that we already talked about. And by the way, there's already people who say, 10 years ago we didn't have smartphones, and in 10 years we probably will not have smartphones because everybody is running around with smart glasses, and you are getting your information through that technology. Now, I would like to start you off with two key facts from the study, and the first fact I found pretty amazing that probably sets the picture a little bit. 76%, so 3 in 4 people did say that they absolutely enjoy and value the freedom of being online and being connected anywhere, anytime. I think somebody said already, some people even have the smartphone on their body when they are sleeping on. Okay, that's probably the real extreme people. But yeah, that's a great opportunity to further the engagement with your customers, with your consumers, with your brand. So as I said, 75% are saying they really value the ability to be online and connected anywhere, anytime. Likewise, 70%, by the way, are saying that they are expecting that in the near future, any face-to-face interaction with a brand will be replaced by an electronic interaction. Again, something that poses lots of opportunities for brand advertisers, but I think it also poses quite a few challenges to think about. And you mentioned the Tesla example, that they are not even selling their cars in the car dealerships, but that they are going totally online. So 70%, as I said, really expect this to be going forward. Now, this is why I hope that you will agree to me that it's never been more important to understand the digital consumer, the connected consumer. And for the next couple of minutes, I invite you to get to know this digital consumer a little bit more in detail. And if I may ask you, please keep in mind what that means for your strategy, for your brand, because one thing I can already say, it's ever more important than before that your strategy, your messaging, the content that you put out is totally aligned across all the devices and across all the channels. You will see some numbers where people, might think, okay, it's a confused consumer, but what that actually means is that they are surfing across all of the devices, and if this is a coherent picture, then it makes total sense. If there's one disruption because one channel or one device says something different from another one, it will disrupt the consumer/viewer. You already noticed that I'm talking about consumers, I'm talking about customers, I'm talking about viewers. This is not a study that has been done specifically for the automotive industry or actually specifically for any industry. And that's why I know that sometimes these terminologies sound funny in some people's ears. So please just use it as viewers probably. Good, so let's dive a little bit into it, and I would like to start with a little quiz. Now, we don't have the cards, plus I have 4 options, so the cards wouldn't work. But what do you think, worldwide, what's the percentage of people believe that watching video programming is an important part of life? And video, again, I need to explain the terminology. Video doesn't mean maybe just a movie, but any type of moving images, any type of content. Is it more 45% who think this is an important part of life, or is it more 70%? Well, there's no prizes to be won anyway, so I'll give you the clue. It's 55% say that this is an important part in their life. Now, the important part here also is that this is shifting. We were already talking about different screens. At home, TV remains the primary device for choice of video consumption or of interaction with your brand. Again, there are some statements out there where people say TV is dead and mobile and smartphones, etc., are completely taken over. I at least think, and I'm happy to debate this over a nice espresso outside with you, I think that TV is not dead and it will not be dead for the foreseeable future. However, of course, there's other devices, and maybe you have a guess of what takes a close second as a second device. Is it more the computer or is it the tablet? It is actually the computer, right? So maybe you are starting now to picture your evening at home, and you and your family sitting there, and who has a computer and who looks at the TV. Actually, I think computer takes a close second, only 7 percentage points behind TV, so it's a close race. And for those of you who say, okay, what about the other devices? Mobile phone is to be mentioned here first and foremost. We already heard in the other presentations how important and how much on the move mobile phones are. They actually at 34% of the respondents are saying they're using a mobile phone, and mind you, at home, right? I mean, that you're using it outside of the home is maybe not the surprise, but that you're watching content at home, if you have a TV, that's maybe a bit of a surprise. Now, we will see this in a few slides. This here is, of course, largely driven by the, let's call, younger generations. We already had millennials, Generation Z, Generation Y, whatever you call it. The younger the consumer, the younger the viewer, the more likely it is that they're using the mobile phones. Going a bit more into the international perspective, this is also driven by Asia Pacific and by Africa. We already talked a lot today about China/Asia. I would like to also allude you to Africa, because for many people in those countries, developing markets, especially in Africa, mobile phones are the single most important device to go into the web, right? I mean, it's more in the developed countries, of course, that we have all the devices available to us, but in those countries, it's really the mobile phone. Good. So you could say in summary that when it comes to watching video content, bigger is better, because as I said, TV is still dominant and followed by computers, but clearly mobile phones are the most commonly cited device for on-the-go video viewing. Again, you know, coming back to what I said earlier, this is absolutely critical to understand because you need to have aligned your brand message and your content across all of the devices. And unfortunately, it might get a bit more confusing as we dive deeper in a few more numbers now, because it's also dependent on what situation the viewer, the consumer is in at the moment in his or her life, and not just in his or her life generally speaking, but of that day. You know, there's different preferences, which device they're using for what sort of event or situation. Now, this is something here that I think everybody has heard about, but this illustrates it a bit more. Viewers have much greater power than ever before. Actually, Dr. Heise alluded to it in his presentation. The fact that many people are going into Netflix, Amazon Prime, they're starting to stream, etc., etc. He mentioned Games of Thrones, watching 5 episodes or even more in one go. This is also what you see here. There's no clear preference anymore of people saying, you know, they definitely only watch live events and live shows, or if they start streaming or time-shifted programming. It all has to do mainly with what you are talking about. This might be a bit of a difficult chart on the eye, but basically to guide you through this very quickly is obviously the blue circle is television, pink computer, mobile phones are orange or amber, and tablet is green. And here you see the preferences in terms of what shows or what type of shows are watched with which sort of device. And it's back to, you know, what's the situation? You know, if you're sitting at home and you're watching a nice drama movie or, you know, one of those, I don't know, Titanic for the 10th time or something like this, this is maybe something that you rather watch on TV, maybe on the computer. I don't think that you want to see Leonardo DiCaprio at the beginning of the ship on the mobile phone. But I would like to draw your attention to the bottom right part of this chart, is how-to shows and short-form videos. This is where I see, for example, for brand advertisers, a very nice opportunity here. How-to shows is, you know, think about, I think we had yesterday a couple of people, for example, from the tire business. You know, if you want to know how to change a tire, well, it is really, really important that you can maybe look at this on the mobile phone, because if you're lucky, you can change your tire at home in your garage. If you're not so lucky, you're in the middle of nowhere. And if you have never done this before, it is just very helpful if you can go to YouTube and the tire company gives you a step-by-step help on how to change your tire. Again, however, it needs to be totally aligned with the rest of your online presence across all different channels, because if it's confusing, that scenery, that digital landscape is confusing enough as it is, and if the content is not aligned, it doesn't help. Good. Another big part that came out of the study is, of course, social media. I guess, I mean, most of you will not admit that social media is new news, that it's important. Everybody knows this by now. But what clearly came out is that if you connect content or video to social media, it's ever so much more powerful, because that's when the real engagement is starting. And this is even more so important for the younger generation who hardly watch any TV. But if you do want to get them on TV and the attention on TV, then it has to have a link to social media. Globally, 53% say that they are likely to watch show where there's a social media content. And why is that? Well, it's to be, able to talk with the hip and the cool, and it's to be able to talk to your friends and to your colleagues. Those of you who have started, your work life without smartphones, that was the typical day when you came to the office in the morning around the water cooler or the coffee machine, and you were saying, have you watched the movie last night, or have you watched the football match last night, or whatsoever. Nowadays, nobody waits for that anymore till the next day. If you have something to say about and you're saying, okay, this is something I want to talk to my friends about, it is on social media, directly from your living room or directly from where you are sitting. Could be in the cafe or could be on the move, on the go. Talking about the social media, what do you think, which continent, very broadly speaking, is the most likely to say that social media is important when watching video? Well, we talked about it a little bit already. Asia Pacific, of course. So 2/3 of the people are saying that this is of high importance to them. But it's written in white only, but followed by African, Middle Eastern countries or Middle Eastern regions. So again, I would like to point your attention, if it's not already there, no offense to Africa. Second screen, very, very important. And the good thing here is I think it's an absolute opportunity for the brands, because there's nearly 60% of the people saying that they browse the internet while they're watching something. And this is your opportunity that can be either that self-education, it can be research that the people are doing on the second screen, but what it means is that there's engagement with your brand if it's done cleverly. Again, Asia Pacific leading the way here with 63%, but also Africa with 61%. What we see here, unfortunately, in most of these numbers is that Europe is a bit more conservative when it comes to the uptake of these new services there. And here again, why is that? Because, keeping the conversations alive with social media. This is very important. The content, especially when it comes to social media, needs to be always updated. It needs to be fresh and it needs to be relevant, especially in those regions like Asia and Africa there. Good. Rounding up a little bit the quick journey around the consumer. I gave away a few hints already, but who do you think, which generation is at the moment still most partial to watching video programming on TV? In other words, who are most unlikely to go to mobile phones or laptops, etc., etc. Well, it's the so-called silent generation. I know that everyone has a different terminology for the different generations, but it's essentially, we classify it as the generation 65 and over. So it's, for lack of better words, the older generation. Nobody here, though. And then, of course, this is followed by the baby boomers. And where it really gets interesting then is, 40% of the generation that and millennials are really into computer. And if you go any further, it's really also then the mobile phone here. And as I said, I think the important part and interesting part here about Generation Z is that, mobile phone, it's not just outside of the home, but it's also inside the home. And again, I know everybody is probably thinking about their kids, but I'm still amazed. My daughter, who turns 13 in November, she uses the phone very heavily. We have restrictions on this. We have to set rules, etc., etc. Some self-discipline there. But she hardly uses it for, of course, making phone calls. But the stuff that she watches on YouTube there, and apart from, of course, WhatsApp, is just amazing. As a matter of fact, she is laughing at me. I think, I can give it away, I'm 42. I think I'm pretty cool using WhatsApp all the time, but I'm still typing, and she's just laughing at me because she says, you should give just voice messages, nobody's typing. I said, yeah, all my friends are typing back. And she said, yeah, but they're also old. So that's a little dilemma. And everyone who is laughing here, I think you have the same problem at home. Good. Rounding this up a little bit, talking about mobile phones, not just the young, but also, you guessed it by now, which which continent is at the forefront of this mobile development. Well, those of you who would now say Asia Pacific, unfortunately, you lost, because it's Africa and the Middle East, and only followed by Asia Pacific. And then another interesting part, maybe especially since we are here in an environment of automobile, watching video programming on the mobile phone during the way to commute. This is, I'll give it away, Latin America by far, where people are doing that. Again, I think a great opportunity for everyone who wants to engage with their consumers. Now, it also does make sense, I think, also that North America is really behind, because in North America, most people are driving to work in their own car. Typically, they're driving on their own. Even if you are watching a movie while you're driving, you wouldn't probably say this in a survey, because it's simply illegal. Whereas in Latin America, lots of people are using public transport, using buses, and anyone who's ever been to Mexico City knows how long it might take to go from A to B. There's a good opportunity to watch a couple of movies on the way. Good. Again, the learning for the brand advertisers is you need to be clear in which cycle in life, in which situation in life you want to connect with your consumer, and you need to make sure that you are hitting them with the right device there. And again, commuting to work clearly here has the mobile phone, but also then the computer. 6 in 10 say that they use electronic devices for, it will be no surprise, keeping in touch with family and friends, get new news, listen to music, take pictures, the normal stuff that I guess all of you are doing. I think what's pretty interesting is to say, how do we plan to use it? And there's, a couple of things here which I don't know how you react to these suggestions, but I thought sharing medical information online might make sense, but I would be a bit hesitant. Maybe I'm already too old for that. Get an education, get a job, feels a bit nicer to me, but the interesting part is all of the above. Across all of the continents, I must admit I was amazed how much people are willing to embrace going digital and embrace giving also away data about themselves. And we already mentioned a couple of examples of people doing applications for house loans or something like this. I mean, even in the past, you would go to the bank for that, and you don't do it online. I would like to leave you with, apart from these key facts from the presentation I gave you in the last couple of minutes, I would like to leave you with one final thought. If you think about digital and being connected, obviously it does make sense to look at the young and the beautiful, especially from Asia Pacific, also from Africa, I'm repeating myself. But do not forget about the older generation, because what also clearly came out of the study is that the older generation, more so than the younger generation, is using the second screen and the third screen to do research and also to make payments for any type of transaction. And I think in the end, it's not just about surfing to your brands, but in the end, it's about buying your brands and getting money for your brands. And this is where the older generations are much more likely to do that than the younger generation. With that, I hope I caught up a bit of time. Thank you very much.
Vielen Dank, war ein super Vortrag, sehr interessant.